Welcome back to part 3 of this flirting series, where today we're going to talk about some signs that she is interested in you continuing to flirt with her. I've got these broken down kind of in a decision tree sort of format, so red, yellow, green, and kind of what to do in each of these circumstances if you're wanting to continue the conversation or if it's a sign that you just need to move on. And these are different based on different people. So I want to give you some practical examples of what this could sound like, and obviously feel free to try this on and make this your own, but hopefully this is helpful for you. You guys are going to have to bear with me. My allergies are in full blast right now, so my throat is a little itchy, but I'm going to try and make this through in one take. So let's dive in. If you're new here, my name's Courtney Shand. I'm a relationship coach. I really love helping men embody their masculine energy so that they can show up confident and clear in what they're wanting from the connection. This is going to be really helpful in reducing their anxiety, helping you get into the flirtiness of dating, and really help you build something that is not only deeply emotionally satisfying, but also really polarized and flirtatious. Last week I gave you a couple practical examples of what you could say, how you could think about things if you want to keep the conversation moving forward. So let's just take the example of the fact that you asked a playful question. You brought some playful curiosity, and this is delivered with the tone of like non-judgmental, not too serious, something along the lines of, what is it that you do for fun? Tell me about a time that you did X, Y, and Z? Are you the fun one in the friend group? That kind of question. And some green flags of yes, proceed are that she smirks, she laughs, she banters back. In this case, don't change anything. When things are working, stay at the same pace. You don't want to be more intense or less intense. You just want to stay where you're at and keep going. If she gives a response that feels polite, maybe she smiles, maybe she gives a response but doesn't re-engage the conversation, she doesn't kind of like hit the ball back to you. What this is actually asking of you is for you to be present enough to shift the energy. And a lot of times what this is going to look like is to shift by asking a genuine follow-up question. So maybe you're bringing some playful energy and she is not quite sure about you yet. She might be kind of like grounding herself, maybe a little too much. And this is not necessarily a bad sign. We just want to give her some space to be human too. But what you can do in that moment is to ask a genuine follow-up question. On my podcast, I talked about follow-up questions, FUQ, and you can remember it by giving a fuck, FUQ. This is where you're going to really ground the dynamic. As the masculine energy, you are the one that is grounding the space. So you're tuning into her, and if her body language is a little bit hesitant, maybe she's not quite as bubbly and vivacious as you were hoping with a question that was playful and curious. It's not that you did anything wrong, and so we want to just shift the conversation. You can say something flirty like, okay, I like some mystery. What do you do for fun? Shift the situation, shift the conversation away from it being quite as direct for her. Give her a different way to engage. What we're really looking for here is she needing a little bit more time to warm up to you, or was it maybe too direct of a question? You've probably been on the receiving end of this where someone asks a question that seems really easy for them to answer, but they have the benefit of being the question asker. So they know kind of what they would respond with. She may either need a couple minutes to she may need a couple seconds to actually think about her response, or she may feel a little bit put on the spot, and that's okay. We just want to kind of pull back a little bit and give her some room to breathe. So what we don't want to do in this situation, if you're kind of in that yellow zone, is to continue to try to elevate the mood. You want to leave the mood where it is. You've, again, probably been on the receiving end of someone who isn't comfortable with your discomfort, and they're trying to like give you this like jazzed up feeling, and it feels a little bit off-putting because you don't feel like you're actually being legitimized. Like what you're feeling isn't valid. That's the experience that we want to not be creating for her as well. And what you can do instead is just to acknowledge that she's not ready for that and shift it. It's a very gracious thing to shift the conversation away from it being quite as directly focused on someone's discomfort. The other thing we don't want to do if you're in this kind of yellow zone, you've been playful and curious and you're kind of ready to banter and she may be not there, is to take it personally. to make it mean that she doesn't want to play with you, she doesn't want to flirt with you, she's not interested, this is going south very quickly. All of those things are only going to get you in your head and create an anxious loop for you that is going to keep you from being able to stay calm and lead the conversation. Again, as the one who is in the masculine energy pole, if you're wanting to create this polarity, we are choosing to be in either the masculine or the feminine energy in that moment. And you are, as I'm assuming, choosing to be in the masculine energy, which means you're the one that's kind of like guiding the conversation and allowing her to engage in a way that feels natural and unfolding for her. So when you take it personally and you kind of like shut down, you pull away. And some other ways that this will show up is when you are trying to like create levity, make a joke out of it, really like poke her a little bit into being in a more playful mood. It really doesn't accomplish the goal that you're looking for, because again, we want to see this person for who they are and just accept what's in front of us and engage with that. We don't want to make it what we need for it to be in order for it to feel fun. We want to engage with what's actually in front of us. And this is something that she will appreciate too. So let's say that you asked a playful, curious question like, are you the fun one in the friend group? Are you more of the one that keeps everyone in line? And she responds with a short, flat tone that doesn't engage you in return. It's not like tossing the ball back to you. It doesn't feel playful. It just sort of lands flat. This is where we're going to call this kind of like the red zone. This is one where you want to be paying attention, and I'm going to walk you through what you need to do if you're wanting to continue in this conversation. Otherwise, this would be someone that's not necessarily interested in engaging with you on that level. That's how you can read it. Not to take it personally, but we want to be aware of the other person enough. But we're not trying to like get around this boundary of theirs. We just want to honor what is true for them. She's saying like, this isn't working for me. And what I want for you to do is to just take a step back in space. This is one of the most powerful things you can do as an empowered, grounded, masculine energy man, is to just literally take a step back in space. If you're sitting at a table, I'm like envisioning you guys sitting at a table, bantering back and forth when I'm thinking about these things. But if you are there, you can just kind of like recenter, either lean back in the chair or just kind of like stand upright. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like physically take a step back, but energetically we want to take a step back and give her some breathing room. This is where you're going to, again, pivot the conversation. You can say something like, fair enough. So what is it that you do with your friends? What's the most fun thing that you've done lately? You can shift the conversation in a way that doesn't make it about her response. Because what we don't want to do in that situation, if someone is not willing to play with you in that moment, is to force it. We actually really don't want to force someone to do something that they don't want to do. And I know there's a lot of information around there that kind of implies that you as the man are leading when you're doing this, but what it feels like is that you're kind of bulldozing her a little bit. So I want for you to very much see that she's not available for that at the moment. And instead of taking it personally, again, collapsing your energy or trying to change her mood and almost like tickling someone that's in a bad mood. It just never turns out the way that you think it's going to. I want for you to see it as her just needing a little bit of space. This is going to do two things. It's going to depersonalize it from something that you've done to about her. You're seeing her as a human who has her own experience and is asking for something based on her response, and you're hearing it as not something I did or there's something wrong with me. You're hearing it as, oh, she needs some space. Let me just give her a little bit more space and see what comes up. When you're redirecting the conversation, what you're doing is re-inviting her in. It may be that she's not interested. That is very much an option. I'm kind of assuming at this point that you're sort of like progressing up these rungs. If this was someone that you're just engaging with for the first time and you tried to flirt or did something playful and curious and she was having nothing to do with it, kind of that short, flat tone, I would probably recommend just turning and walking away, kind of starting fresh with someone else. But if this is someone who normally is playful and open, I would just see it as her needing a little bit of space. Maybe that part of the conversation feels a little uncomfortable for her for some reason. And that's normal. We all have different days where we're in more of a playful mood, or something feels a little bit more comfortable and easy to access for us than others. So if you just see it as her having a need for some space, what that's going to do is depersonalize it from you and also allow you to continue with the conversation instead of shutting it down completely and, again, having taken it personally, pulling away, collapsing your energy, feeling bad about yourself and or about the connection. You're keeping a space open for her to be another human being, and you not just trying to like force this to be something that you want for it to be. Again, that energy, the masculine energy, is very directive, and that is very helpful. But if you are continuing to push when she is saying, that doesn't feel right, it's going to come across as really like pushy energy, and that is going to only cause her to bring even more defense online. So it's going to cause her to shut down even further. It's going to cause her to resist even more. In the same way that if a woman were doing something that you were like, I don't like this, if she were nagging, if a woman were bringing a complaint to you and you were like, okay, I'll take care of it, and she did it again, and you're like, okay, I'll take care of it, and she continued to do it, you would start to call that behavior nagging. It feels very similar to be on the receiving end in this scenario when you're like, I don't really like this. This doesn't feel quite right. And someone continues to like try and push, whether it is trying to get you out of that mood that you're in or trying to get you to re-engage in a way that they would prefer for you to be. So we just want to see them as in their own space. They have their own mood. They've got their own thing going on. And you're just going to give her some space and try to redirect the conversation into a more neutral ground, something that you can re-invite her in, and then you can start to kind of escalate again. All right, so you've done playful, curious banter, and she is either having it or not having it, and you've walked your way through that. Now let's move into a little bit deeper of maybe you gave her a compliment. Some green flags of giving her a compliment that she is receiving that. Let's say you said something like, your energy is so refreshing. First of all, we want for this to be delivered in a relaxed tone, where if she said nothing, you wouldn't be expecting something in return. That is going to be one of the easiest ways to unhook from some drama that happens inside of ourselves when we're giving a compliment so that the other person likes us or so that they give us a compliment back. There's kind of a expectation tied to it. So we want to break that expectation and just give her the compliment. It is a gift. That is what compliments are. And that can feel really vulnerable. So I just want to normalize that too, that it actually sometimes feels more vulnerable to give a compliment than it does to receive. So this is going to take a lot of bravery and courage from you. But let's say that she receives it. Some green flags of this, obviously, she's going to light up. Her eyes are going to sparkle. She will maybe smile, smirk a little bit. Maybe she returns the compliment like, oh, thanks. I think you're really great too. Any of those are going to be green flags. And again, when there is a green flag, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to change anything. We kind of want to go at the same pace that you've been going. If you did want to escalate it and she's giving you some green flags like that, this would be the moment when you could escalate that. You could deepen the compliment by saying something a little bit more certain, like, I had a feeling that you would be fun to talk to. Again, kind of neutral. If she takes it, great. It'll just make her feel good. If she doesn't take it, it's not really something that you're like staring into her soul and professing love for her. This is something that you're just owning. I had a good sense about you. I feel refreshed around you. These are things that are non-physical compliments, which are just A++, as we talk about on the podcast all the time. A++ compliments, because when you're willing to compliment someone's essence, not necessarily their physical attributes, it helps them feel like you're actually seeing them in the same way that you would want to be complimented on your character traits as opposed to how much money you make or how you look. It takes a lot of discipline to have a body that looks like that. It takes a lot of focus and creativity and vision to be an entrepreneur. Those land differently than, wow, I'm so impressed that you make X amount of money, or wow, I'm so impressed that you have such a great body. They're just going to be a little bit deeper. And again, when we're wanting to lean into that polarization of the relationship, that edginess is really powerful. So don't be afraid to walk on your own edge in that way, because it will be well received by the right type of person. And that really is the person that you're wanting to create something with. All right, so we've got green out of the way. If she is responding in a way that is light, bubbly, engaged, playful, maybe returning the compliment, green flag. Keep going and or lean in. That is a moment when you have a chance to escalate things a little bit more incrementally. So feel free to go back and watch the escalation video if you want that. Let's say that after you give her a compliment that's sincere and not expecting anything in return, she says something polite but very reserved, like, "Oh, that's nice. Oh, thank you." Something in that tone. It's not necessarily like, "Thanks, oh my gosh, that's so sweet of you." Green flag. This is like yellow zone, where she may be having some internal discomfort coming up because of her own ability to receive. Compliments can feel really vulnerable to receive, just like they can to give, but we want to give her the space to be human too. And so this kind of yellow zone is two things. Either she's having a human moment, which you need to give her some space to be in her humanness, because that's what we would hope for you as well. Or it's going to give you the awareness of where that personal space bubble is for her. You may be finding kind of an edge for her, and you just want to take note that this is something that might feel a little bit stretchy for her. Maybe she's not ready to be complimented on that specific thing yet. Or something that's happened for me before is someone can see you in a way that you haven't seen yourself yet, and it feels like, "I've never considered that before." Not necessarily that you disagree or that it's not true or that you can't receive a compliment. It's kind of like she's got to process it for a second. So again, we want to give her some space to just be human. And you can do that by really simply guiding the conversation into something that's a little lighter. You can back up half a step and say something like, "It's true. So what have you been excited about lately?" And give her an opening that is maybe a little bit more comfortable and general for her to re-engage in the conversation. This doesn't necessarily mean that you did anything wrong. More often than not, this has something to do with her ability to receive the compliment. And again, she's kind of taking inventory of the situation and how easily she can receive that from you. So don't want you to take this personally. You didn't do anything wrong, but now's not the time to lean in and kind of like push even more. You want to give her a half step of space and kind of redirect the conversation to be a little bit lighter and a little bit more general. So let's say that you gave her a compliment that was genuine, not about her physical appearance, just about how she impacts you, her essence, if you will. Something along the lines of, "Your energy is so refreshing." If she pushes back or deflects or changes the subject and says something like, "Yeah, so anyway," or "No, it's not that great," or anything along those lines, I want you to consider this kind of the red zone. Again, not that you've done anything wrong. This is the dynamic that we're looking at. So that's where I want to take this, is not exactly what you need to do in order to get her to shift her mood. This is about the dynamic that you're wanting to create big picture. So if that's the case, this can be for a few reasons. One is that you may have found her kind of upper limit of tolerance of what type of compliment she feels most vulnerable receiving. Sometimes being seen by someone that you're not already connected to can feel a little bit intense. And like I talked to you about that exhilaration energy and grounding that, you can go back and watch the video about approaching women with confidence. That feeling is something that a lot of times women have a hard time grounding and just receiving. So it might have just activated that for her, and she needs a second to be with that. And this is sort of a response, an automated response that she has to compliments. The other thing is that it can feel a little bit too vulnerable too soon. If she has not created enough rapport within herself with you, receiving a compliment like that can sometimes feel a little bit more vulnerable than what she is used to. And sometimes for women who are really independent and self-motivated, they feel more comfortable being in their head. So what you may have just observed is her coming out of her body and into her head and trying to think things through. It might have a little bit of anxiousness kicked up within her. And so that's all that I want for you to read that as. How we want to handle it from your perspective is to just give her a little bit of space. Instead of taking it personally, I want for you to think of giving her a full step of space. Again, taking that step back into space, not collapsing your energy or taking it personally or making it mean that she doesn't like you or that you might as well leave or that there's something wrong with her, she can't accept compliments, this is going to go nowhere. Instead of all of those stories getting kicked up, I want for you to just take a step back and give her some breathing room. You can do this in the conversation by redirecting it into a little bit more grounded, serious space. When I was coaching women, a lot of my clients were in the helping field. They were the therapists, the nurses, the teachers, the type of women who were really good at being there emotionally for other people. And sometimes they can be in this like deep emotional space with other people without actually feeling vulnerable. And this is something that I don't think they had words for until we started working together. And this was definitely my story too. Sometimes when you receive a compliment and you are asked to be in the vulnerable position of receiving, even though that is what you are wanting, if you're wanting to be in the feminine energy and you're across from someone who's in their masculine energy giving you a compliment, sometimes it can feel a little bit disorienting. It doesn't necessarily mean that you did anything wrong or that she has done something wrong, but I want for you to just give her some space. Imagine just kind of like pulling your energy straight back in space, keeping it focused on her. You're not trying to like run away or collapse this. I want for you to just ground the conversation, and sometimes taking it a little bit more seriously than playful can be easier for her to re-engage. Sometimes women can be really comfortable in a more serious, heartfelt space than the playful, heartfelt space early on until she starts to get comfortable with you, because play can sometimes feel vulnerable. This doesn't mean that you need to take it into like your deepest, darkest trauma, but you could say something that's kind of serious but a little bit light as well of, okay, serious question. What's something that you are secretly really good at? Again, you're re-inviting her to play, but from a more grounded space than having kind of the focus on her. You'll know that this is what she was needing if she comes back to center. She takes kind of a exhale. She will re-engage, maybe smile a little bit more. It may take her a minute or two. Again, everyone has their own experience happening internally. So what I don't want for you to do is to take this personally and shut down the connection. I want for you to see it as that you've met this limit for her. And we want to be mindful of that and just give her some space to have that limit in the same way that you would want for someone to respect your limits when they find them too. Sometimes it can feel really vulnerable when someone finds a limit for you, and this is where a lot of times my female clients actually were coming from more of an avoidant end of the spectrum. So there's kind of this anxious all the way to avoiding end of the spectrum called attachment theory. So in the attachment theory world, there's this spectrum of like anxious leaning, where when the disconnection happens, you really lean forward and try to activate, all the way to the avoidant end, which is where you try to like shut things down when they get too intimate or too close. And a lot of times my female clients who were surprisingly in the helping space, in the emotional space, the therapists, the nurses, the teachers type people, found themselves more on the avoidant leaning side of things, in that when they felt vulnerable or when they were stepping into the unknown, their immediate response was to kind of like shut things down. If you're across from someone who is doing that, one of the kindest things you can do is just to give her a little bit of space. And you can step back in space altogether. Keep your energy focused on her in a I'm still here tone, not in a what did you do, why did you do that, because it's going to feel even more vulnerable if she's feeling judged. Similar to you. You've probably had these experiences too. So we want to just give her a little bit of space and not take it personally. This is not the time to push more. This is not the time to kind of like poke or play or try to get her to laugh instead, because what that is doing is sending the message that whatever she's responding is not correct, and that you can't handle what she is actually communicating with you. And when we're wanting to build something long term and healthy, your ability to be across from her humanness, across from her emotions, is going to be a really green flag for a lot of these women who would make great partners once they feel more comfortable and confident in the connection itself. So, I'd love to hear from you if you typically find yourself in the red, yellow, or green categories, how you've handled it. Hopefully, this was some new insight or new information of how you might want to handle it moving forward to keep the connection open while also moving things forward as that masculine energy partner. And just a reminder, I have a masterclass this Thursday, March 27th. I'll put the link in the description below. You can sign up for that. It's designed to help you make moves like you're unrejectable so that you can really flirt confidently and unhook from those expectations of her responding in the way that you would need for her to respond for you to feel good. The more that you can create some space for the other person to respond authentically, the more likely you're going to create a connection that lasts and stays healthy. If you want some support with that, I have one-on-one space available this month. And if you just want some mindset shifts, I have the dating codes. Feel free to snag those as well. I'm kind of walking you through in a similar way how to think about something so that the action that you take is naturally coming from the highest vantage point that's going to give you the best likelihood of something healthy happening for you. So let me know in the comments if you liked this. I hope you have a really great week, and I will see you next week.